Christine, for the walking meditation. I never tried to connect it with my ancestors during the meditation. So it's very new and refreshed my mind. So thank you again. Let me share the screen. The first flower of the spring, crocus. A few days ago, I saw the crocuses on the way to the CVS. So uh, I just put it on the screen to feel the energy of the spring with you. Today's topic, which I prepared, is number 5 of the items of heedfulness regarding temple visits. On the days of the regular Dharma meeting, be heedful, be mindful to come to temple, and dedicate yourself exclusively to practice that day after settling in advance any outstanding matters. Before we look into this, I want to see the structure of the principal book. Unfortunately, last week I couldn't join the class due to the Wi-Fi connection, unstable Wi-Fi connection. So I missed what did you said last class, but it might be good to see the structure before we get into the number 5. After Iron-san, we have 3 parts in the principal book. Part 1, general introduction. It has 2 sections, the founding motive of the teaching and the outline of the teaching. Part 2, there's doctrine. We have 1 to 7. Iran-san, fourfold grace, 4 essentials, threefold study, 8 articles, and the essential ways of human life of practice. End of practice. Sorry. And the last one is the 4 great principle. And the part 3 is practice. It starts with the essential dharmas of daily practice, and it continues to fixed term training and daily training, and all the way to the end of the principal book. It's the stages of the Dharma rank. So we can see Master Sotaesan showed us the truth, the Iran-san, and he started why he opened this teaching. It's in the founding motive and the doctrines, and the end of the principal book, he gives us the standard of the character of the practitioners from the beginning to the Buddha. And we are studying here in part 3 practice, number 2, fixed term training and daily training, and daily training. In the outline of the teaching, there's a purpose of faith and practice. Some of you might remember that Master Sotaesan's the founding motive is lead all the sentient beings, including ourselves, from the miserable world to the paradise, because we live like a slave of all the material things. And here the material things is not just this kind of physical things, it's including the all things, and all things invisible or visible, which is arise or ceases. And he said the Iran-san, the Dharmakaya Buddha, is the object of faith and the model of practice. So since we are studying the practice part, we should remember the model of practice is the Iran-san. And the fourfold grace and the threefold studies are the main principles of our faith and practice. Without that, we don't know how do we faith, how do we have faith in Ilwan-sang, or how do we practice modeling of Ilwan-sang? So he showed us the principle of our faith and practice. In the part 3 practice, the section 2, where is it? Chapter 2 is fixed term training and daily training. So we can see that from the principle book, the structure of the principle book, Ilwan-sang is the model of our practice. And the principle of our practice is the threefold study. And based on the Ilwan-sang and the threefold study, we do the essential dharmas of daily practice, because every day is our daily lives. And so we say this is fixed term and this is our daily training. But since every day is continuous, do you understand what I mean? If you don't understand, please let me know. So we just fixed some date. This is fixed term training and this is daily training. But they are all our mundane life, is our daily lives. And based on the essential dharmas of daily practice, Master Sotaesan gave us training, fixed term training with 11 subjects and daily training. And in the daily training, he suggested two huge items. One is items of heedfulness in daily applications and items of heedfulness regarding temple visits. So let's think about the relationship between the items of heedfulness in daily applications and regarding temple visits. In the Tao, to clarify the verse, Master Sotaesan said, the items of heedfulness in daily applications are a rapid method that enables one to practice consistently while living in human society, regardless of whether one is learned or ignorant, a man or woman, young or old, wholesome or unwholesome, novel or common. So these items helps everybody could be the Buddha. And the items of heedfulness regarding temple visits are the method that complements and points to the items of heedfulness in daily applications. So it really helps our daily practice, especially the heedfulness, the mindfulness in daily applications. He said, the Sotaesan said, daily training. So items of heedfulness in daily applications helps regarding temple visits, and regarding temple visits helps the daily applications. It's based on the essential dharma of daily practice, which is based on threefold studies, which is based on the Ilwan-sang, the modeling our practice. The items of heedfulness regarding temple visit, the premise is we should practice the items of heedfulness in daily applications. That's why Master Sotaesan put this at the number 1 in the regarding temple visit. Whenever you come to temple while practicing the items of heedfulness in daily applications. So the people the practitioners who has the same motive with the founder, the Sotaesan, like the Buddha, to be a Buddha, to attain the Buddhahood, and to save not just myself and around ourselves and the society and the nation and the world as well, then we need to practice the heedfulness in daily applications daily in our um, mundane life. And then it will gonna make a lot of questions because we apply the Dharma to our daily lives. It's gonna make us have questions and sometimes awakening. And sometimes if we practice and study the Dharma, we're gonna have a special doubt. That's why we come to the temple. Uh, he said in the number one, we can question and answers at the temple, but it's not specific. The temple, the physical building, the temple building. Um, Whenever you come to temple means, I think, mm, when you call to the ministers, when you call your teachers, it is also come to the temple. Because he mentioned about the regular Dharma meeting at the number 5, not on the number 1, 2, 3. In the 1, 2, 3, the important thing is I got 2 things. In the number 1, when you meet your Dharma friends, when you meet your Dharma teachers, questions and answers each other, everything. You can have conversation about each and every aspects of activities. But number 2 and 3, he's talked about spiritual mentor. Because I am interested in the Dharma or awakening, the AI of the YouTube AI showed me a lot of YouTube channels. And so many people, they say, I'm a spiritual teacher. I'm your mentor, or I got enlightenment. So many people talked about they got enlightenment and they are the teachers. But Master Sotaesan's spiritual mentor is not just to see who sees the Iron-san, the original nature. He says in the future, even the children will see the Buddha nature, and then they will find the teacher to be the Buddha, finally who attain the Buddhahood. Just yesterday, Reverend Yu shared the size, the poem. It was really beautiful, and it seems like the Buddha's poem. If I didn't read its size, the poem, I would think maybe one of the great enlightened masters wrote this poem. You will see the children around you and young people around you. And look at you. You come to the scriptures, the class, and you talked about the Dharma. Just a few decades, people couldn't imagine that. Just lay members cannot talk about the Dharma. Only the supreme people can talk about the Dharma. So this age is really bright. So we need to think about who is the spiritual mentor. And in the items of heedfulness regarding temple visit, Master Sotaesan talked about you need to attain the appraisal about your awakening. It's based on the truth, the principle of great and small, being and non-being. It's not just to know about what is great and small and what is being and non-being. To see and to practice, to get the appraisal about the principle of great and small, being and non-being, is to build the right and wrong, benefit and harm among our lives. So if someone just to talk about the great or talk about small, but their life is not like a practitioners, it is not the right teacher. That's what Master Sotaesan said. He never denied the mundane lives. And he also said to gain awakening of understanding about a special doubt, you need to ask your spiritual mentor. I saw the rank of Dharma. I saw the rank, Dharma rank. There's a rank of Dharma strong and Mara defeated. This rank elucidate each and every idea in our scriptures and master completely the principles of great and small, being and non-being. So if the people who insist I'm the teacher, but who cannot build up who the great and small, being and non-being, and the right, what is right and wrong, benefit and harm among their lives, then they are our Dharma friends. So I can say we are Dharma friends. So finally, number 5, it's on the days of the regular Dharma meetings, be heedful to come to the temple and dedicate yourself exclusively to practice the day after settling in advance any outstanding matters. One day, Master Sotaesan asked his congregations, there was a temple member who earned the money to suffer his family. And Master Sotaesan talked about Master Sotaesan asked his disciples, what do you think about him? And, we can think that if he cannot live without the Dharma service days work, then he could do it. But Master Sotaesan's answer was different. He said, what you say makes sense. But since meetings are not held every day, if he were a person who has a true aspiration regarding practice and deeply understands the value of the Dharma, he would have done his best to prepare ahead the daily provisions for that meeting day. So he thought the regular Dharma meeting is that much important because it helps our our practice of daily applications, and because daily applications helps us to practice the Dharma in our daily lives. So finally, to attain the Buddhahood. So I thought about my attitude toward the regular Dharma meetings. To be honest, when I was a temple minister, I was waiting for the temple members going back home because I wanted to get some rest. I didn't think about that time as a young minister. I didn't think about how Master Sotaesan thought it was that much important. And I didn't think about my job. Share the Dharma, to have question and answer each other. It was that much important. It's going to help not just the temple members, but also help me. I really didn't know about that. So it made me to think about my attitude. And I want to ask you, how do you spend your day of the Dharma service? And do you just come to the temple or just join the Dharma service through Zoom, and after that you just do whatever you want to do, or whatever you do, you planned to do? after I prepared this presentation, I thought maybe we need to uh, give a lot of stress to the ministers at the temple. Ask them and keep question and keep try to get the appraisal. How do I become a Buddha? Or think about my practice. Bring your question to the ministers and they will like it. In the end, the founding master said, no matter what you may be doing, whether you are wholly devoted to it or not, depends on how well you understand its connection to yourself. Um, when I worked at the office, uh, I said I'm busy. I'm so busy. But if there's something I really want to do, if there's someone who I really want to meet, I make time. I finally do. I find some even a little moment. So if we really think about this practice is really important for my practice, for my spiritual development, we'll do it. He said, practitioners train diligently because they understand that practice is vital to their future. So I hope we do understand about our how this practice is important to our spiritual development. Um, Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Shino Yowanim. It was very clear. Your presentation is very clear and concise. And I love how you started off with the structure, like just kind of seeing the connections. So it's kind of like a nice review. And then linking it to, the truth of each one. And then kind of linking to the faith and practice and seeing what connection it has to that. And then from that, you were saying it was like threefold study, then essential dharmas, and then there's the training, right? Um, so yeah, I'd love to hear from people. You made that strong connection between our daily practice and then going to the temple, and then emphasizing why Sutta-san was saying, no matter how busy you are, if you understand, how the importance of practice and the connection it has to you. I love that. I think that's important. What connection it has to me, how is it relevant to me? Then that should be a motivating, force. Um, and then bug the bug the ministers, you said? All right. Okay. So let's open it up. I think Shino Yomunim really covered a lot. So any thoughts or reflections about that and relating it to your own practice? I mean, okay, Patty's already got her hand up. Great. Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I had to because you touched me very deeply, Chino. Thank you so much. Um, I was having trouble with some of. There's so much to read, and I'm a thoughtful reader, so I can't just read a book like it's entertaining. I want to understand what it's saying to me, and that hurts my brain after a while, and I have to take a rest. So, so first, I want to point out that this is my book, and see, there's this little pink thing here, and it says number 26. Let's talk about this, and you did. so, so, so I'm so grateful that you could put those things together, for me so that I could have a clearer understanding of what I was looking at. And so I'm very happy for that. Um, as a beginning practitioner, and I'm also kind of insecure and shy, and when I'm in big crowds, I get a little anxious. So it says when going to temple visits. the mentor, find a mentor, share your an awakening you might be having, get his assessment on it, that kind of thing. And I would go to temple and I'd see people after service, like getting in these groups and everybody's talking. And I'm looking and I'm like, what do I do? You know, so then I would stand next to a couple of people talking and I'd get a nod, but they'd continue. And I thought maybe I'm intruding, you know, so I better just step away. Let me, maybe later or whatever. Later never happens. It just never happens. Um, I'm grateful for, one person who's a Dharma friend of mine that we can talk about Dharma almost every day. We talk about scripture and applications in our life. But that last page of yours that said, when you go to temple, what do you do after temple? You know, how do you apply this in your daily life? Do you bring it home with you? Like wearing clothes, right? Or feeding yourself. This is another aspect for me that I make a part of my daily life so that each thing that I am presented with. I had a very difficult day the other day. I had to go to a funeral and I have a judging mind for some people that I see and I don't really know them. They're not friends. Um, but I've seen them here and there. And I'm like, what are they doing here? Like I'll just get all like, who are you to be here? And why are you doing this? The kind of stuff. And today I can immediately see how I'm behaving, what I'm supposed to be doing, how to change that thought process, stop it, pause, get peaceful and apply all these things that I'm learning through all these readings and these classes and stuff. So that's that last page that you had is basically so now you've been to temple, you've talked to your mentor, you've gathered some enlightenment and so on. What are you going to do with this? Are you going to wear these clothes or are you just going to, okay, I'm home now, put it aside and do something else? And for me, that's not an option. you know it's just not an option. But the whole presentation, I'm not going to present this year because the presentations I've seen so far are so beautiful and so profoundly together that no, I'm not doing this. But I am so happy for you and I'm so grateful for your teaching. Thank you.
Yes, Brenda.
So first off, Christine, thank you so much. That was really interesting. I felt like it was a different way to meditate. I know I've done walking meditation before, but also I've never done it with ancestors in mind, and that was wonderful, and that gave different meaning and power to it. So thank you. And and anyone and everyone, I also agree that your clarity was really helpful. And it just hit me like, because I have not been to temple or really to a regular Dharma meeting. We don't really have those. Yeah. Allison, I'm looking at you. Have I been missing it? Okay. So no, we don't really have it. So what's the difference between a regular Dharma meeting and temple?
Robert raised a hand.
In fact, your talk reminded me of how much I miss going to the temple physically and instead having the Zoom meetings. Our Dharma talks, we have two Dharma talks on Thursday, or two Dharma groups on Thursdays that meet for an hour and a half each. And it's all questioning and great questioning, sometimes too much questioning. But and so it's a small group. So there's only about 20 in each group, and so we can be Wong will break us into smaller groups, and we discuss for maybe 10 minutes, and then come back and report of what we talked about. But in the actual temple, in our temple, when we were a year ago actually physically getting together, there'd be maybe 40, 50 people in one of the services, and we'd go through the chanting and prayers and one thing another, the meditations, and then the Dharma talk, and then Wong Gong, or Ginger at the time, would say, everybody lean over to your neighbor, get in groups of 2 or 3 or 4, and talk about what we just presented. And then she'd give us 7 or 8 minutes to do that. And then she'd start calling on people. Well, what did your group say? What did your group say? So the questioning of each other allows you one of two things. Either I didn't understand that, and the other person says, well, I didn't understand it either. Or they're reassuring you that your interpretation of what was said in the Dharma talk is the same interpretation they got, or challenging it in some fashion. So either way, it works out well. But in the Zoom talks, we have Saturday and Sunday services, but on the Sunday service, there's like 100, 110 people Zooming at once. So Wong Gong can't put us into smaller groups. It's just physically impossible to do. I guess he could, but really hard to do on Zoom. So we don't get that interaction with the person sitting on each side of you. And gosh, I miss that. I really do. And so, and the other advantage is my wife goes with me, and we live in Cary, North Carolina, near Raleigh. So it's a 45-minute drive to the temple. So we get to talk about the Dharma talk all the way home. So we get at least another 45 minutes. So to me, the interaction with other people like that, it works pretty good as I said, in the Dharma discussion group, like we do here. But in the regular sessions on Sundays with that many people, it's missing, and I really miss that.
Thank you for Patty and Brenda and Robert. And while I was listening to your talking about the presentation, I also thought about, yeah, what is temple then? If you can ask and answer about your each day and each application, the Dharma application to your daily lives, then there is the temple. And if you can ask your spiritual mentor or your Dharma teachers about your awakening or your spiritual doubt, that is also the temple. Actually, here he mentioned specific place is only on number 4 and 5. Number 4, in a sun center, and number 5, on the day of the regular Dharma meeting. So number 1, 2, 3 is wherever you can practice to those 3 items, but 4 and 5 is the temple, and this is fixed term. It's happened in the fixed term. For example, we are in the fixed term Dharma meeting, the scriptures study. So this could be the Dharma meeting or sun retreat, especially for the inquiry. That's what I understood. And Sun Center, Master Sotaesan's time, when people went to the headquarters and they had 3 months of practice, how did they do that? They didn't do meditation all day long and just eat. Some people cooked for me. It was not Master Sotaesan's times meditation or sun retreat. At the headquarters, all disciples said, this is the fixed term training. We're going to have 3 months of fixed term training in summer and 3 months in winter. They did meditation together, chant together, but they worked during the day. So if your temple, like North Carolina after the pandemic, if North Carolina temple, Washington temple, One Dharma Center, or Philly temple, if you have a plan with your ministers, then you can have sun retreat like Master Sote-san's age. You can stay, maybe they don't like it, but why not? Or you can just sleep at home and go to the temple meditation. And during the day, go to work and come back to the temple and mindfully eat with your supper with the ministers and chant and meditate and go back to your home with the mindfulness mind. I just thought about in my head. And of course, after the temple Dharma service, I confessed in my presentation when I was at the temple minute.
Oh, Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi. Okay, well, while we're while we're waiting for Shinogyo and oh, there she. Okay, she's back.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm sorry. Oh, again.
Okay. Okay. I think Wondo raised his hand.
Oh yeah. I just want to say thank you, Christine, first of all, for the meditation. It was really, really powerful. It was a little emotional for me too, because I was just recollecting all the ancestors as you were guiding us. So it was really powerful. I definitely felt their presence. And it reminded me, like in our Mexican culture, we have the Dia de los Muertos event, like in October, and I thought to myself, why do we only do that for like that day or that week? I should be like every day. So thank you for that reminder, for that. And Shino, thank you again for grounding us in theory and the context of our study. I feel like every time you do a presentation, I'm learning from a scholar. So thank you for that. It's really refreshing. But as you were sharing, Shino, about item number 5, when it says be mindful to come to temple and dedicate yourself exclusively to practice that day, what came up to me was I kept thinking, going back in my reading this week, about it's like very connected to making a Buddha offering in a sense. And I think about that, attending that temple service with Dharma friends and creating that collective energy is very much collective Buddha offering, both individual and collective. And it's like, I think I went back to, I found it on verse 16 of Doctrine, where the founding master answered, disciple asked, how does one make a Buddha offering to truth? And the founding master answered, after cleansing your body and mind and making a vow before the Dharmakaya Buddha, remove all distracting thoughts and single-mindedly offer up your sincerity by either entering samadhi, reciting the Buddha's name, chanting a sutra, or intoning a mantra, and so forth. And I thought, wow, that's what we do in Dharma service on Sundays. We do all of these things together. And I thought, wow, so we're really making a Buddha offering to truth. We have that opportunity every Sunday through Dharma service to make a Buddha offering to truth. And so it reminds me of the collective power of what that offering to truth looks like through heedfulness number 5. So thank you for that, Shino.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, everyone. And let's move to Reverend Yu, time-wise.
Thank you so much for the beautiful presentation and walking meditation. I think it worked pretty well. Yeah, thank you. When I decided to become a Won Buddhist minister, and as a novice, I stayed in Dongmyeong Retreat Center before starting to study at the Wongang University. On the first night, I had a dream. In the dream, I hiked to some mountain, to the top of the mountain, holding my teacher's hand. At the time, I was in my mid-20s. My teacher was in her late 60s, Jung Taban-nim. And at the top of the mountain, I saw our third head Dharma master, Venerable Desat. Very, very big image, like a background image. You can practice at all. You can study scripture. There are so many wonderful resources on the YouTube, etc. Of course, you can practice meditation at all. But if you are driving to unknown territory, when you are walking to the top of the mountain, if you are driving to the CVS in your neighborhood, you do not have to worry about that. If you are hiking to the top of the mountain, which you have never climbed before, it makes a difference whether you have a leader, your teacher, or not. When I was a Christian, at the age of 24, I joined in some mega church in Seoul. I volunteered in the choir and I taught Bible to the elementary school student for a while. And when I came back to my hometown, Daegu City, I joined some temple, a little smaller temple. I didn't receive much grace from the service. So one day I thought to myself, on Sunday, I better go to the mountain to offer prayer, study scripture, etc. And after 6 months, I stopped going to the temple. Do you know what happened? My faith and the practice start to dwindle. Even though I was very much highly motivated, it makes a very big difference on a regular basis whether you go to the temple service or not, from my experience. That's why it says, be mindful to go to the temple, physically go to the temple. So as I said to you, you can exercise at home, turning on some yoga video, but going to the gym is different. Several years ago, one gentleman approached one Buddhist minister. The minister was waiting for his sick son to come out. He was wearing Western style uniform. Then the gentleman, who is a pretty well-known figure, one CEO of a very big corporation, he said he was diagnosed as to have the terminal cancer, and he was not that old. He said he's sorry for many things. The first thing, he didn't have a quality time with his family members. Particularly, he became very much estranged from his daughter, whom he loved the most. He said to the minister, if he live again, he would not live in that way. But Don't you think it's a little too late? He was already in his 50s. So actually, it's not that late. We can change our life direction. If that gentleman took a time, he worked all day long, 24/7 to become the CEO. Of course, he's very successful from the work, but if he stopped, if he's contented with his life, it is okay. But he said he would not live in that way if he were born again. So if he stopped his life and looked very deeply and changed his life course, just like when you drive in some uncertain area, you have to watch the navigator on and off in order to know whether you're driving on the proper path or not. So that gentleman stopped, let's just say, every Sunday or Saturday to look very deeply, then he would have lived a very contented and joyful life. So just like when we drive our car, the car engine needs a rest. We need a rest. That's what we are supposed to do on a regular basis. Think about that. Whether it's a Judeo-Christian tradition, the biggest spiritual tradition on earth, one of the 10 commandments. It's not item of mindfulness. It is a commandment. You should do that. Remember the Sabbath and observe it holy. Very, very important item of mindfulness. Do you know Jewish people in this world, their population is 0.4%, less than 1%. But we all know in the economics, in the politics, in everywhere, successful Jewish persons are dominant. In the Ivy League, around 30% of the students are always Jewish. In some year, in the Columbia University, half of the students were almost Jewish. You know what? Especially we know there are so many Nobel Prize laureates, particularly in the economics and the physics and the chemistry in some very important area. The thing is, Jewish people, their intelligence, it's a little objective, but their IQ is not that high compared with the other nationals. Do you know which national have the highest IQ in the world? People in Hong Kong, first. Second, South Korean people, etc. So one Korean scholar said, maybe Korean people are born with a better intelligence with the Jewish people. And definitely they study and work far harder. You cannot imagine how average Korean high school students study at home. Except eating and sleep, most of the students study all day long. After graduation, they worked really, really hard. But why Korean people just received the one Nobel Prize, Peace Prize? It's not in the academia. What's the reason? South Korean people are smart, study, work hard, but why they don't have received the Nobel Prize that much compared with the Jewish people? He said, Korean people are not creative. Not creative. Do you know what the scholar says why they are not creative? Because they study and work too hard. They have to stop their thinking mind. Mental, physical activity on a regular basis, they need to put it down to become creative. There are lots of experiments. One scholar said, it's just some simple quiz, which requires some reason and wit, some creative quiz. In the middle school, in order, before asking that question, if you solve that question, you will receive some prize. As a warming up exercise, before students receive the questions, for 10 or 15 minutes, one group was provided one simple math problems in order to make their logical thinking workable before solving that big problem. That's the first group. The second group, they watched the life story about Mother Teresa. Their mind can be calmed down and their hearts became open. The third group, they watched the comedy for 10 minutes. Which group solved that problem very easily? The highest number of students in this group solved that problem. Group number 1, 2, 3. Okay. Number 1, they studied some basic math. You can raise your hands. Second, watched Mother Teresa's video. Okay, watch the comedy. Okay, you are all very creative. They needed to clear and empty their mind in order to be very creative. When you are creative, when you become very creative, when your mind needs some rest, and when your mind become recharged. 그날은 교당에 와서 공부에만 전심할 것이요. If I literally translate that, be mindful to come to the temple and dedicate yourself to the Dharma study and the Dharma practice. 공부에만, exclusively to the Dharma study. When I first read one Buddhist scripture, this word I hated the most. Study, Dharma study. I was sick and tired with the study at that time, in my 20s. But he said, on Sunday, I need a rest. But our founding master said, dedicate yourself exclusive to the Dharma study and the Dharma practice. I didn't like that. But what kind of a study is that? What kind of a practice is that? It is the practice to let go of all our worldly burdens, let go of all our attachments. That is the direction of a Dharma study and the practice. This is the Bible verse that I like very much. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, and you will find rest for your soul. What is Dharma study? It is the study and the practice of let go of all our burdens. As long as you chase after something secular, your life goal is something very secular, I don't think you can rest. They can continually compare themselves with other people who may become more successful. Or resentment, frustration, depression, jealousy, etc. All kind of things arise. When you study Dharma and reset your life goal on the proper path, on the truthful path, only at that time you can rest. That's why Jesus said, the truth will set you free. You need to first learn the truth and practice the truth. The truth itself will never set you free. You have to learn and practice the truth. So exclusively to the Dharma study and the practice. That's the meaning. How can you know whether your face is clean or not? Sometimes we just don't know. But when you look in the mirror, you can know very clearly whether this part is clean or that part is dirty. We don't know. Even though you are a very mature practitioner, you are driving to the best path, whether that path is your practice or life goal. We are not quite sure. When you read the scripture, you can tell, because the scripture is the mirror that can reflect you very, very accurately. We need to study and contemplate that. One of a very well-known motivational speaker, Kim Chang-ok, is a very, very famous so-called happiness preacher. Before going to the office, he usually give his daughter, 9-year daughter, a ride, even though he's very busy, but he would like to spend some time with his daughter. One day, as she got out of the car, he usually rushed to drive to his office. That's what he did. But one day, he really missed his little daughter and watched she getting out of the car and enter the school building for 4 or 5 minutes. he discovered his daughter's legs. Is that called the knock leg, X-shaped knock knee or knock leg? He was a little surprised. Wow, her little daughter's leg is not straight. So the next day, when he went to the hospital to check her little daughter's leg shape, the doctor diagnosed on her legs and said, told to that motivational speaker, how, as a father, cannot notice? How could you not notice the shape of your little daughter's leg? It didn't happen one day. It started to be bent it continued for a couple of years. They lived together all the time. So the doctor was very much mad. But to make a long story short, with some brace, but within 6 months, it can be fixed very easily. But for 6 months, she has to endure very inconvenient situation. But the father was very much relieved. She can become very normal. Do you know why that happiness preacher could not recognize the exact shape of his daughter? Because he played with her, he spent the time with her all the time. They were too close. When that motivational speaker saw her from very, very far, when she got out of his vehicle and entered the school building, he saw her daughter pretty far. From a long distance, he can very objectively saw her physical condition, her literal physical condition. Don't you think we needed to look at our life, observe our life, watch our life from a distance? We are too busy with so many things. Even when we play very busily. So once in a day, once in a week, we needed to let go of all things and look at our life from a very, very long distance in order to see our life and our practice very objectively. Only after we see our life objectively, we can re-enter the destination of our practice, the destination of our life goal, into our life navigator. So, as Shino said, some ministers are annoyed by temple members that spend too much time in the temple, even though the temple service is over. But there are a lot of subgroups and you can utilize, but use that Sunday, or it can be Saturday, to recharge yourself, to contemplate the Dharma, to nurture yourself. As I said last week, for 6 days, you have lived for your family. For one day, you need a time to enrich your life. That's a true way to help your family, to help this world. So let's observe this item of mindfulness. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Yu. So as we break out into the small groups, just reflecting on, how for you going to temple, how does that increase your faith and practice? And also your efforts in, exclusively dedicating your time and energy to attending these services. So just share your experience and your experience with the temple and how that's affecting your practice and faith. So I'll open up the rooms for you. Tiffany, can I ask, did you take that picture yourself?
Yes, I did.
Wow, where is that?
Suwon,
Asu. Oh my God.
Ichi, in Gyeong province.
That's great. Oh my goodness. What a beautiful picture. Oh.
Yeah, I was just missing everyone, so I was like, I'm gonna put a reminder up.
Oh.
We were mentioning that some of the temples take tour groups to Korea. Does the Philadelphia group or the Dharma Center in New York do that ever?
Well, the One Institute we hold like a kind of a 1 month or 2 weeks, but we used to hold a 1 month retreat in Korea, and then it reduced to 2 weeks. But the Philadelphia temple doesn't have that right now. Okay, nice to see everyone. Welcome back, everybody. I'm sure you all had fruitful conversations regarding temple visits. I'm just curious with Isabel's group, Isabel, John, and Patty. Was there anything you'd like to share with the group about temple visits? Oh, John.
Oh, all right. Well, we got to it at the very end of the talk, but well, just specifically about what was going on now in the age of Zoom with temple visits, and Isabel and Patty were mentioning that they go to a great number of kind of WAN programming that's going on, whether it be study sessions, the one-on-ones, and the Sunday Zooms, and actually even moving meditation. I think Isabel mentioned she does with Reverend Song, I guess. So they are doing much more than I. I've fallen out of practice with the Sunday Zooms, just something that's just been happening with me. But I'm getting re-encouraged and reinvigorated. I know most of what we talked about today were the face-to-faces. And definitely when face-to-face starts again, I'm looking forward to that. But we also talked about it being similar to trying to carve out a one-day retreat for yourself, similar to what we were saying about, all the good things that retreats bring to you. And to be honest, I had never really been thinking the sabbatical type of Sabbath type of thinking for the one particular day, but I'm going to try thinking of it that way. It makes sense.
What a great idea. In the chat, I will send a link that has all of the online services. For those of you who weren't aware of it, it was a link on the One Dharma Center homepage where they list all the temples and the online. But that's great. A 1 day a self-retreat. That's such a good idea. Thank you for sharing that. And One Dose group, Kathy, Christine, any sharings from that group?
Yeah, we had a really great dialogue and conversation about our individual journeys with temple and our experiences being in temple with Dharma friends and the community that we experience in that space. And we really talked about how being in community with in temple with the Dharma community really energizes us, gives us a spiritual grounding foundation, um, and referencing the Christian scripture, it's that part of the passage in the Bible that talks about where two are gathered, I am in your name. And so it's really thinking about, it's the power of coming together and the collective sharing of knowledge and teachings that we provide to one another. And so one of the most powerful experiences that Christine and Kathy shared was being part of the women's group that they started now going on 4 years, and how they were meeting once a month in person, but now through Zoom over this last year, it's once a week, and how that really have had a profound impact on them, and the trust that was built in the group, and the dialogue, and the energy within the group that is shared. So I thought that was really inspiring. I guess there's a men's group as well at One Dharma Center that meets. So that was really powerful to hear. And I briefly shared about, I've never experienced the temple visit yet because it's been closed due to COVID, but I went to actually make a visit with Reverend Dogan to actually tour the temple. I've never been, so I asked, "Can I just go?" And with our masks on, he welcomed me in open arms, and he gave me a tour. And it's one thing I was sharing to see him on Sunday service through Zoom in the space, and it's another thing to actually be in person there. And I thought, wow, what the energy felt very, very powerful. And there's like a timeline in the temple about Master Sotasan's life, which was really profound. That had not been there, would have never seen it, right? So I think, yeah, there's definitely value, and great value in being in community with others. So I hope to learn from Kathy and Christine and others about how to continue to build up the community here in LA to get it to the level that's similar to the East. So thank you for that sharing, Christine and Kathy.
That's amazing. Wow, great. I'm glad you got to meet with Togon Gyomuni. That's great. All right. I have Allison, Robert, Tiffany. Was there any sharings from that group?
Okay, fine. So
We waited you out.
you sure did, and I broke. Oh, so so just like everyone else, we had a fruitful conversation. 3 out of 4 of us have, the privilege of being able to attend a temple, either the temple grounds or go inside the temple pre-COVID. But Allison was sharing that in Denver, they have a different experience, but they're still forming a community with Reverend Buck. But as Wando said, there's not that tangible building to go to. So as we were all reflecting on the power of community, online versus in person, it was the idea of the energy that you gain from physically being around people. And we weren't speaking as a longing of days past, but really appreciating the idea of being able to see someone's face and to be able to interact and ask questions. And, in our group, we have different levels of how long people have been practitioners, but we were all very encouraging for one another, because we realized in a part of the passage where, you should have like a free day to just really think and reflect on the Dharma. It's not always possible in a modern life. So we encourage one another to say, if you're going to engage in an activity, do it mindfully. So if you're, picking weeds, as Bob, brought up, that one of the ministers just said, let's do an hour of picking weeds on the property. Divine inspiration and necessity all together. That, that is something though that is beneficial for everyone. So that was helpful in trying to apply the Dharma in a very modern way. that works for everyone and keeps your practice going, because that's the purpose of the temple and the community, is to encourage one another to keep going forward and not fall lax. As Reverend you was saying earlier, it's very easy just to kind of fall away if you stop doing one aspect of the practice. Did I miss anything?
And I
Okay.
apologize. I think Chaeyoung was also in that group, but her name wasn't on here. So Chaeyoung, Robert, Tiffany, and
Yeah.
Allison. Yeah.
Yeah, Taeyong was the one who kicked it off. She asked good questions.
Wonderful.
Yep.
It looked like Tiffany covered everything. Great. Yeah, your teammates are like, good job. Excellent. And last but definitely not least, Brenda's group. Brenda, Diane, Shino, Yoani. Was there anything?
So we really, a lot of the things have been already covered, you know, making the day a retreat day throughout, being mindful of your activities. And then we spoke quite a bit about being able to get your spiritual mentor, having that discussion, and just how their perspective is essential to your progression as a Dharma learner. So, I don't know. That's pretty vague, but what other thoughts? Anyone?
We talked a little bit also about spiritual experience and the difference between phenomena and experiences that are leave a transformation in you, leave a shift in you, and others that are more like just phenomena that we might make a big deal of when it ought not to be made a big deal of. Chanel, would you say that was right? Chanel was really kind of leading that conversation.
Microphone, Shino, give me. Okay.
Thanks, Diane.
We cause we talked about this is the definition. The Brenda's question was, what is the definition about the temple? And while we were talking, I'm sorry, I just remember what I talked somehow. And my point was, while we're, as we practice deeper and deeper, we can have some spiritual experience, but it's easy to attach to that. That's why we get ask and try to get appraisal from the Dharma teacher, because Master Sote-san try to avoid other superficial things. Once it comes and it goes, once it arises and it ceases. And superficial things also, it's just a phenomena. So it's very special, but we don't have to attach to it, but it's so easy to attach. That's why we need spiritual teacher to go forward for our practice. And Diane, who is a Sufism practitioner, for her, some experience is fundamental to change the life. But what I understood, our conclusion was, if the person do not attach to that experience, that is okay. But once the practitioner attached to that experience, even though it changed the one's life fundamentally, it could be also deluded thought. Because once we attach to something, we cannot see the fact as it is. So, am I right? Thank you.
Great. All of you have such good memories. Hmm. So thank you for sharing that. And Reverend Yu, would you just do our closing comments?
Yeah. Your level of spirituality, uh, specifically speaking, your level of wisdom and merits or blessings are exactly in proportion to your level of happiness and joy. On Sunday or on Saturday, one day in a week, on weekday you have to go to work. You could be in movie theater. You could be in some mountain or park, or you could be in a cafe with your friend, or you could be at a temple. Where do you think you can progress the most? Our environment with whom we spend the time really affect our destiny. There is one Buddhist temple, Dobong, one Buddhist temple in Seoul, Korea. At the time, the head minister was Kwon Dogap Gyomunim, Reverend Dogap. One day when he opened a donation box, he discovered one envelope which has a lot of money. And it came from his temple member. That temple member was not rich person. But the next Sunday, he asked, what happened? And the member told to Reverend Kondogap. He was an insurance agent. His salary is exactly in proportion with how much insurance he sells. There is no fixed salary. So when he meets his friend, his relatives, whatever person, always one main thought was, how can I sell insurance to them? Sometimes that kind of a thought or mindset made him somewhat uncomfortable. He thinks sometimes he'd like to take advantage of his acquaintance, his friends and the relatives. But that day, he listened to the Dharma talk about what is our life orientation, our goal, but from Reverend Kim. And he reflected his life. Of course, in order to support himself and his family, making a lot of money is important. He needed to do that. But he thought about eventually for what? Eventually for what? So he shifted his life goal a little bit. When I make a lot of money, I'd like to donate some of the money to build some retreat center in the suburban area of Seoul. When he changed his mindset, life goal, something happened. He felt very comfortable when he met his friend, his relatives. With some confidence, he could tell them, why don't you buy my insurance? And the funny thing is, he could sell more insurance to them. But one thing, he realized, there was one thing he realized very, very deeply. Do you know what is that? whether they buy or don't buy insurance. Insurance is a very, very important to us, to all people. Even though for his whole life, he sold the insurance, but he could not realize that. When he learned the Dharma, when he practiced his Dharma, his life was changed. He could make more money. He could feel more comfortable in whatever situation he is. So that's why the English translation goes, on the day of a regular Dharma meeting, the Korean word says 그날. 그날 means on that day, on that day. That's very important. So once in a week, let's dedicate ourselves exclusively to the Dharma study and the practice. Then our life will be changed, quite moved to a different level. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Yu. So the conclusion is, let's go to temple, everyone. So everyone have a very good night. Love to see you. Get some rest. See you next week. Bye.